Charles Taylor was unable to take power by force because he could not defeat the army inside Monrovia. He just never was able to do it. We were talking to him by satellite phone, and he kept saying, next week I'll be capturing Monrovia, and he never did. The Liberian army was unable to fight outside of Monrovia, but with inside Monrovia, they just prevented Taylor from coming in. While he kept promising to capture Monrovia, the situation inside Monrovia was very bad. People were dying of disease, hunger, what have you. Ethnic violence was taking place. So we persuaded Doe to accept the idea of leaving. I personally called up President Eyadema of Togo and asked if he would accept Doe and his family. And Eyadema said yes, he would do that. And we started planning to take Doe out. We talked to Taylor about opening up a corridor to Sierra Leone so that troops from the Army of Liberia could escape. They felt that they had to fight to the death because they would be killed if Taylor came in, so we wanted to give them a way of getting out. And Taylor said he had agreed to that, and so they left open a corridor, but this was defeated because Prince Johnson broke away from Taylor, and he blocked the corridor. So it was very hard for him for the Liberian troops to get out. But anyway, we continued with our scheme to send an airplane to Liberia to get Taylor and his family out of the country. I visited, this came later. At this point, when we were about to send our aircraft from Europe to pick up Doe, I received a word from the White House that we should cease all activities dealing with the Liberian conflict, just stop doing anything. So that the plan, I was not given any explanation for that. So all of our plans were just halted right there. And so Doe was not taken out of the country, and the war continued. Since we decided not to follow up on our plans, the responsibility for doing anything to stop the fighting was passed, in effect, to the West African governments. Now, you must remember that the training, equipping, and financing of the Taylor guerrillas came from Burkina Faso and Cote d'Ivoire and Libya. So they were part of the West African community. Libya was not, but Burkina Faso and Cote d'Ivoire were part of the community. So there were meetings of the West African Economic Community known as ECOWAS. And the Nigerians and Ghanaians were very upset about what was going on in Monrovia. They had a large number of their nationals living in Monrovia who were caught up in the fighting. Sierra Leone was also upset about that. So they had a discussion, and the Nigerians, Ghanaians, Sierra Leoneans, and Republic of Guinea said that they must send an intervention force to stop the fighting in Liberia. Burkina Faso, Cote d'Ivoire were opposed because they were supporting Charles Taylor, and they wanted Charles Taylor to win. They did not want to stop the war until Charles Taylor was victorious. But against the opposition of Cote d'Ivoire and Burkina Faso, a peacekeeping force was raised by the West Africans, and they landed in Monrovia area. We supported this because we were very worried about the conditions in Monrovia. We were unable to get any aid into Monrovia. The port was blocked. Charles Taylor's forces were shelling the port. We could not send ships in there. So the West African ECOWAS forces, known as ECOMOG, landed in Monrovia. I forgot which month. I believe it was April. And immediately pushed back Charles Taylor from Monrovia and relieved the situation inside Monrovia. So we were able to bring medical supplies, food, whatever was needed to relieve the humanitarian situation. So at that point, the United States government essentially was not doing anything. Our only responsibility at that point was to worry about U.S. citizens in Liberia. And we sent a naval task force offshore to help evacuate any U.S. citizen who wanted to leave. And at some point, we sent Marines into the center of Monrovia to help gather these people and bring them out to the ships. I don't remember how many actually came out. We estimated there were 5,000 U.S. citizens living in Liberia, and I think maybe several hundred did come out. So basically, the issue was one for the West African countries. They said that they were there to keep the peace, and they wanted to have an election and all that, but Charles Taylor did not trust them. He felt that they were coming in to keep Doe in power. So he started a war with the West African forces. In August, the White House asked me to go out to West Africa to survey the situation and talk to everyone. I started with the president of Guinea, in Conakry, who told me the whole problem, you must blame the president of Cote d'Ivoire. He orchestrated the whole thing, Houphouët-Boigny, and he's totally at fault. There would never have been any fighting, any guerrilla forces, without his money, his training, and his support for Charles Taylor. I then went to Sierra Leone, and I got the same story from President Momo. It's all the fault of Houphouët-Boigny. I then flew from Freetown to Monrovia. There was fighting in the streets, so I landed in a helicopter on the grounds of the U.S. Embassy, and I didn't stay 24 hours, I stayed less than 24 hours. And I met at the embassy with Prince Johnson. I was unable to meet with President Doe. I met with Prince Johnson. I found him to be rather, how shall we say, very emotional, very wild in his discussions. I had the feeling he may have been taking drugs at the time, but he was really a very incoherent person. So I didn't get much out of him. I flew from Monrovia to Abidjan, and I met with President Houphouët, and I said, what can you tell me about this war in Liberia? He said, I don't know anything about it. I never met Charles Taylor. I have no knowledge of anything, against the background of all these other presidents telling me that Houphouët started the whole thing. And he said, sorry, I can't help you. I don't know anything. So I said, okay, Mr. President, but you're very influential. You're the elder statesman of this region. What can you do to help bring about peace in Liberia? He said, I'll do my best. So this started these various Yamoussoukro meetings that he was calling to help bring about peace. I flew from, this was in August, by the way, of 1990. I flew from Abidjan to Man, M-A-N, which is on the border of Liberia, and I went inside Liberia with the U.S. ambassador to Abidjan, and I met with Charles Taylor in his camp, which was about 20 kilometers inside the border in Liberia, and he was surrounded by young boys, I would say 12 to 14 years old, carrying these very heavy machine guns, Kalashnikovs and what have you. It was very frightening to go in there. And we met with Charles Taylor. He was sitting in a sort of like a throne, and behind him was a picture of President Kennedy and Mrs. Kennedy.